COVID-19 crisis has decimated our city's already crumbling infrastructure, with MTA ridership falling more than 90% at the height of the pandemic. As many New Yorkers shifted to working from home and tourism waned due to fears of contracting the virus, it made sense that the number of commuters would plummet. This dramatic decrease in ridership has also predictably blown a hole in MTA's budget, forcing the agency to rely heavily on federal relief and short-term loans in order to stay afloat. However, what most New Yorkers were unable to foresee is that their leader would let them down in this moment of crisis. Although it's certainly not Mayor de Blasio's fault for the dip in ridership, he has failed to adequately address the needs of New Yorkers who still very much depend on the subway and public transit during this pandemic. New Yorkers of color, in particular, who also make up a vast majority of our city's frontline workers, have continued to rely heavily on the subway and buses during this pandemic. But once again, as is the case with many of the crises facing this city, our mayor always thinks it's someone else's fault. Earlier this month, Mayor de Blasio blamed communities that have been hardest hit by this pandemic for vaccine disparities as a, quote, disparity of willingness. And now Mayor de Blasio refuses to take any responsibility for his transit failures, as well as the overwhelming number of New Yorkers who are still afraid to ride the subway. Yet again, the mayor clings to his own ego and ideology, ignoring the clear and present facts that are right in front of him. The vast majority of riders have cited legitimate health concerns and fears about crime and harassment as the reason they have yet to return to the subway. But per usual, it is everyone else's fault but his own. Instead of blaming the MTA for his own failures and shortcomings, the mayor should lead by example. In December, Mayor de Blasio made another empty promise, pledging to ride the subway for a month to show it was safe. But a month later, he told New Yorkers he had too much else going on. The easiest way for this mayor to assure New Yorkers that the subway is safe is to ride it himself, and not just one stop for a blatant photo op. The mayor also touts the 644 New York Police Department officers he was tasked with patrolling the subways, but fails to mention that he waited months to provide this, quote, huge show of force, only doing so following a spate of gruesome slashings. Moreover, he's fundamentally failed to respond to the growing mental health and substance abuse challenges that we see not only in our subways, but on our streets all over this city. Tragically, the mayor fails to recognize the real impact that mental health and substance abuse professionals could have in addressing these underlying issues and making all New Yorkers feel safer. Unfortunately, de Blasio's pattern of breaking promises and shirking responsibility doesn't stop with the subways. Despite commitments made by the beleaguered mayor to install 20 miles of busways and bus lanes during the pandemic, less than a mile has been built by the Department of Transportation as of December. Tragically, the same communities that would have benefited the most from the creation of these additional bus lanes are the very same communities that were hit hardest by this pandemic and let down by this mayor and his inadequate and inefficient distribution and response with the vaccine. While I do believe the MTA has its own share of problems, many that I look forward to addressing as mayor, the current resident of Gracie Mansion needs to grow up. Instead of taking potshots in the press, he needs to come together with MTA to find solutions. That is what leaders do. As mayor, not only will I ride the subway every single day, something this mayor is apparently incapable of doing, I will look to the MTA as a partner, not an adversary. By creating a stronger partnership with the MTA, we can ensure ridership on the subways, buses, and paratransit is supported in order to avoid messes like the one we are in right now. Additionally, I will also increase oversight on MTA capital plan prioritization, operations planning, and work to increase governance through the addition of board seats for the mayor in exchange for increased city funding for the MTA. I will also establish strong relationships with state and local elected officials representing New York City districts to ensure they hold MTA accountable at the state level. As I mentioned earlier, the MTA is also experiencing a major financial deficit. Another problem that this mayor has only responded to with complaints instead of constructive solutions. As someone who's served in government at the highest levels, I know that aid from the federal government is more important than ever. I will use my deep relationships both in Washington and Albany and to get MTA the funding it needs to better serve New Yorkers while ensuring that the sources of funding are dedicated to our city priorities. My administration will also pick up where de Blasio has fallen down by prioritizing investment in a true bus rapid transit system in key corridors, while also improving regular bus service and building more bus lanes in transit deserts and communities of color. Taken together, these improvements will fix the transit failures that this current administration has created and make our transit system more safe, accessible, and efficient. During my time as President Obama's Housing Secretary and Budget Director, he would often tell us we cannot let a crisis go to waste. This mayor has had an incredible opportunity in this moment of crisis to repair our crumbling infrastructure and reimagine our public transit systems in a way that works for all New Yorkers. Unfortunately, he has squandered this moment. The people of this city deserve a mayor who will lead by example and not waste those precious moments, as well as a mayor who has the bold, comprehensive plans to manage the crises we are facing. I promise you, I will be that mayor. Thank you.